You're tuned into the edge of the dark, folks. I'm Dr. Nightshift, your host, your ghost of the midnight airwaves, still broadcasting from somewhere east of the ashes. The power grid flickers, the generators cough, but we're still here. Zombieland FM, the last late night lifeline for anyone left breathing. It's been 1 month since the world went belly up. 1 month since the mad person disease, yeah, that's what they're calling it, started eating through the human race like a fever dream. Started with cows, they say, contaminated meat, mutated strain of mad cow. But the thing about fire, it spreads. At first, it looked like just another infection scare. Quarantine zones, health bulletins, press conferences with men in clean suits pretending they had it handled. Then the meat trucks stopped rolling, the markets emptied, and one by one the TV stations went dark. By week 2, cities were burning. By week 3, the power grid was done. The satellites failed. The only thing left are the voices, scattered survivors, shortwave junkies, ex-soldiers, preachers, lost souls, all talking into the void, hoping someone still hears them. There are no governments now, no safe cities, no order, only clusters of the living trying to dodge the dead. You've seen them. The munchers, they call them now. Fast ones, dumb ones, the ones that sneak and crawl and stalk you through the dark. Civilization collapsed faster than anyone thought it could. We track time now by survival days, not calendars. But we're still talking, still breathing, still fighting. Tonight, if the airwaves hold, we're opening the lines again. Maybe you're out there on your own, tuning in on a busted radio or an old truck stereo. Maybe you've got a story to tell. Maybe it's the only way to stay sane anymore. Let's take a caller. You're live on Zombieland FM. Dr. Nightshift, this is Chaplain Knox Tanner, Cranston, Rhode Island. I'm 54 years old, United States Army Chaplain Corps, retired, or I guess that doesn't mean much anymore. Been trying to get through for a few nights, figured tonight's as good as any to speak my piece. Before all this, I worked out of St. Luke's base near Providence. Sundays, I drive home to Cranston, see my wife, my boy, my daughter. I used to think the hardest thing a man could see was combat. I was wrong. The first week of the outbreak, folks still believed it'd pass. Rhode Island's small. We thought we'd hold out. National Guard rolled in, checkpoints went up along Route 10. We kept preaching hope at the shelter, food pantry, prayers, all that. Then one morning a truck came through from the west. Said they'd been escorting a convoy from Worcester. Half the guardsmen inside had been bit. They didn't tell anyone. By nightfall, the church was a slaughterhouse. That's event 1. I saw them die praying, then stand up again still dripping with blood. I tried to get my family out the next day. Drove south toward Warwick. The roads were gridlocked. Cars packed bumper to bumper, horns blaring, kids screaming in back seats. That's when the first swarm hit the highway. They came pouring over the bridge like a wave, fast ones, munchers, all snarling and snapping. I watched a father try to shield his son with a baseball bat. They went down together. I drove over the divider, through the brush, and didn't look back. Event 2. My wife was in the passenger seat. She kept whispering prayers, the kind we'd say for the dying. She didn't know she'd already been scratched. 2 hours later, she seized up, went glassy-eyed. I pulled over near a Dunkin' in Coventry. She started convulsing, blood in her mouth. I held her hand while she stopped breathing. Then I watched her come back. That's event 3. I had to end it with my service pistol. After that, it was just me and my son, Luke. We linked up with a few others, a nurse from Warwick, an old fisherman, a kid who worked at a car wash, and a National Guardsman named Deacon. We holed up in an abandoned fire station off Pontiac Avenue. That became our safe house. Event 4 hit us on night 5. We were cooking canned beans on a propane stove when we heard tapping on the bay doors. Not banging, tapping. Soft, deliberate. Deacon went to check. The thing outside wasn't a regular muncher. It was a hawking, smarter than the rest. It used a wrench to knock the lock loose. When the door came open, we found ourselves staring at 3 of them. Fast, too fast. The nurse went first. The fisherman froze. Deacon took 2 down before the 3rd got his throat. We burned the place down behind us and ran. Event 5. We made it to the Cranston High School. Thought we'd found sanctuary. It was full of survivors, families, kids, even a priest leading them in hymns. But the infection was already inside. A kid named Benny, maybe 8 years old, got bit and hid it. By morning, he'd turned. You ever see a classroom full of children get hunted in the dark? Dr. Nightshift? You don't forget that sound. After that, Luke stopped talking, just stopped. I think he was still in there somewhere, but he looked hollow. We scavenged food from the strip malls, slept in the pews of burned churches. Every night, more of them came. Event 6 came when we tried the airport. TF Green was chaos, runways jammed with burned-out planes, sirens echoing from the terminals. There were rumors of evac flights. Lies, all of them. The only things still flying were the birds picking at corpses. We saw soldiers, but they weren't human anymore. They moved in squads, like they still remembered formation. Deacon called them T-800s, hard to kill, armor thick. We shot till our mags clicked empty. That was the end of Deacon. Event 7, a gas explosion at the airport. Took out half the concourse. I lost hearing in my left ear. Luke and I barely made it out. Smoke everywhere, dead everywhere. We stumbled back into the suburbs. Event 8. I met a man on Park Avenue who claimed he had a working radio, said he could reach a Coast Guard ship off Narragansett. He was lying. When I went into his house, he tried to rob us. Didn't expect a chaplain to be armed. I left him there, bleeding. That's when I realized the living were worse than the dead. Event 9. Luke got bit. We were running through Garden City Mall, trying to grab supplies. A ninja got him, silent one, fast, out of nowhere. He didn't even scream. I only noticed when he started shivering. He begged me not to shoot him. So I didn't. I sat with him all night, held him when he changed. Then I walked out and left him there. Event 10 was 2 nights ago. I found what was left of the National Guard command post near Johnston. Empty tents, papers scattered, maps with circles and red X's. I found a working transmitter, and that's how I got here. I think this might be the last working signal in the state. I don't know how many of you survivors are still out there, but listen, if you're near Cranston, stay off Route 10. There's a nest of them near the old Home Depot, hawking types, maybe 30 strong. Don't go near the high school either. It's a feeding ground now. If you've got family, hold them close. Don't let guilt eat you alive. It'll do it faster than the virus ever could. I don't think faith saves anyone anymore, but it keeps your soul from rotting before your body does. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all a man can ask for now. Dr. Nightshift, survivors. I don't know if I'll make it through the week, but if anyone hears this, keep moving, keep breathing, keep your humanity. Hope this helps someone out there. God willing, I'll see you on the other side. That was Chaplain Knox Tanner out of Cranston. 54 years old, still carrying the weight of his world on his shoulders. He lost everything, family, faith, safety, but he's still broadcasting, still trying to help. That's something. If you're listening, remember this: guilt doesn't feed you, fear doesn't protect you, and faith is just what keeps your hands steady when you aim at something you love. The dead aren't the only danger out there. The desperate will rob you, the lonely will lie to you, and the strong will sometimes turn cruel just to survive. But there are still people worth saving. I've seen it. Safe zones tonight. Reports say there's a small survivor group holding out near the Pawtuxet River Bridge. Makeshift barricades, lights still on. If you head that way, go quiet, flash twice with a flashlight. They'll answer back. Avoid the industrial park on Elmwood Avenue. Red zone. Full swarm last seen moving east. Stay breathing, stay sharp, stay human. You're not alone. This is Dr. Nightshift signing off from Zombieland FM. It's a quiet night on the western waves, survivors. I'm Dr. Nightshift, still on the mic and still above ground, and you're listening to Zombieland FM. If you caught last night's broadcast, you heard Chaplain Tanner's voice out of Cranston. Brutal story. Faith tried and burned down to bone. Since that call, we've had reports out of the Northeast of major migrations, packs of munchers moving inland, hawking variants leading them through collapsed tunnels and broken rail lines. Looks like the East is bleeding out faster than anyone thought. Out west, though, there's another kind of chaos brewing. The fires from Los Angeles spread north, whole valleys smoldering, and I've been hearing things about the Bay. Something's blooming in the ruins. Plants, spores, things growing in the bodies of the dead. Maybe just rumor. Maybe something else. If you're still breathing, still tuned in, we're taking another call. You're live on Zombieland FM. Evening, Dr. Nightshift. Evening survivors. My name's Dax Corvin, 31, ethnobotanist, Mountain View, California. Used to study how plants survive in harsh conditions. Guess I picked the right damn field, huh? The world's just one big petri dish now. Before the world fell, I worked at a biotech lab near Palo Alto. We'd been studying genetic resistances in plants, stuff that could help crops adapt to disease. Funny thing is, when the outbreak hit, we didn't even realize we were watching the beginning of extinction. The first cases on the West Coast were passed off as contaminated beef imports. The CDC came through, did their song and dance. Then the quarantines came, and the fences, and the screaming. Event 1, it started with a cow in a field near Gilroy. I remember because the farmer brought in a tissue sample. The meat was crawling with neural filaments that shouldn't exist, looked like fungal roots. That was my specialty, symbiotic pathogens. Only this one wasn't symbiotic. It ate everything. Event 2. 2 weeks later, the hospital next to us overflowed. People showing signs of acute prion degeneration, raging, biting, drooling, black bile. They called it mad person disease. I called it an accelerated culling. The human species pruning itself. When the first munchers hit Mountain View, I was in the lab. We sealed ourselves in, me, my lab partner, and 4 interns. We thought we could outthink it. We had rations, power from the backup generator, access to chemical storage. Survival looked like math. Until Event 3. One of the interns, Dana, started hearing voices, said the vents were whispering. 2 days later, she opened the emergency hatch to let the voices breathe. They came in like a storm. We lost 2 people before I hit the fire suppression release. Liquid nitrogen flooded the corridor, froze the bastards solid, froze Dana too. Event 4. Food ran out. We broke into the company cafeteria across the quad. It looked like a war zone, blood on the walls, trays everywhere. But the real problem wasn't the munchers, it was the smell, something sweet and wrong. The plants from the greenhouse had started growing through the bodies. Mycotized tissue, stems pushing from their throats. I realized the spores from our experiments had spread through the ventilation system. I think we made something that grew faster in the presence of infected tissue. Nature reclaiming the meat. Event 5. I tried to harvest it. I'm not proud of that. The plants glowed faintly, chlorophyll mutation. I thought maybe we could use them as a light source or even medicine. I brewed a tincture, tested it. It burned like acid, but it kept me awake for 3 days straight. No hunger, no fatigue. I started hearing the roots hum when the infected got near. That's when I stopped calling it survival and started calling it control. Event 6. We left the lab when the generator failed. 4 of us left. We headed towards Shoreline Amphitheater. Rumors said there were survivor camps near the lake. We found the camps. They'd been overrun. Piles of people, all with vines growing out of their mouths. The plants were spreading. The munchers avoided those bodies. Like they knew. Event 7. We met a group of scavengers on the 101. They had an armored van. I traded them my tincture for a ride north. Bad deal. They used the stuff to stay awake on watch shifts. A few hours later, they started scratching at their own skin, saying they could feel something growing underneath. By morning, one of them split open, roots bursting out of his chest like cables. The others panicked, shot each other trying to burn the van. I walked away, didn't even look back. Event 8. I made it to San Francisco, or what was left of it. The Golden Gate was a bonfire, cars stacked like barricades. I thought the wind would carry the infection out to sea, but the fog carried it back inland. The city was full of munchers, standard ones mostly, but some moved in packs like wolves, like the hawking kind. I ducked into the botanical gardens, thinking maybe I'd die surrounded by something green. But the greenhouse was alive, too alive. Roots moving across the floor, wrapping around the corpses. It hit me then. The plants weren't just reacting to the infection, they were feeding on it, evolving. Event 9, I tried to communicate with them. Laugh all you want, survivors, but I'd seen the way the roots reached towards sound, vibration, heat. I poured the last of my tincture onto the soil. The plants moved faster, almost like they understood. That night, a horde of munchers came down the street, drawn by the sound of generators. They hit the greenhouse, and the vines hit back. Wrapped around them, choked them silent. When I woke up, the whole place was quiet. I think the plants saved me. Event 10, I moved back south, following the overgrowth. The infection and the flora have become one thing now. a new ecosystem. I've seen munchers with moss growing out of their skulls, vines pumping through their veins. It's beautiful in a grotesque way. The dead feeding the living turning into the dead. The cycle complete. I'm sitting now in what used to be a Google complex. Solar still works. I can see the Santa Cruz Mountains burning. The smoke smells like resin and rot. I've started spreading seeds from the mutated plants along the roads. Maybe it's my curse. Maybe it's my purpose. Either way, nature doesn't care. She just reclaims. To you survivors out there, don't look for salvation in steel or bullets. The Earth's taking back what's hers. You can fight it or learn to move with it. I used to study life. Now I cultivate death. If you pass through Mountain View and you see gardens glowing in the dark, don't be afraid. That's me, or what's left of me. Good luck, Dr. Nightshift. May your world stay mechanical a little longer. Mine's gone green. Dax Corvin, ethnobotanist out of Mountain View. You heard him. A man who looked at the apocalypse and decided to join it instead of fight it. Maybe that's madness. Maybe it's adaptation. Either way, what he described matches what I've been hearing from the West Coast. New growth, strange biology, the infection evolving. Maybe the world's not dying after all. Maybe it's just changing masters. If you're near the bay, steer clear of the 101 corridor and the peninsula. Avoid any sites with thick vegetation or glowing flora. Those aren't safe zones. Those are nurseries. Reports say a small survivor group's holding out near Moffett Field, fortified hangars. They're asking for engineers, mechanics, medics. Stay moving, survivors. Stay human if you can, and if you can't, try to make it mean something. You're still listening to Zombieland FM. I'm Dr. Nightshift. Keep your radios close and your heart steady. The night's not over yet. Welcome back, survivors. You're tuned to Zombieland FM, still breathing through the static. I'm Dr. Nightshift, holding the fort through another long, haunted night. If you've been tracking our signals, you know the last few nights have brought grim news. Outbreaks expanding west from the east coast, strange plant growths in the bay, and major collapses of safe zones across the desert states. Arizona's gone dark on most channels. No power, no government chatter, no official anything. Just the hum of the dead and the whine of empty air. I've got word from what's left of the emergency frequencies. Phoenix fell last week. Tucson's gone radio silent. Whatever's left of the I-10 corridor is chaos. Burned convoys, half-eaten caravans, wrecked National Guard transports. The heat's making everything rot faster. Out there, the dead dry up like paper and still move. Fast. If anyone's still kicking in the desert, you're surviving hell on Earth. And tonight, maybe we'll hear from one of you. You're live on Zombieland FM. Evening, Dr. Nightshift. Name's Reeves Strain. 38 years old, mobile equipment mechanic out of Mesa, Arizona. If anyone down in the valley can still hear me, yeah, it's me. The guy that used to fix your diesel rigs at the yard off Main Street. Guess I'm fixing different things now. Day one, I was under a hauler, oil dripping in my face, when the radio started screaming. Emergency alert, full lockdown, mad person contagion. My boss laughed, said it was another media panic. By lunch, a delivery guy came staggering through the bay door, half his face gone. He bit through a man's throat before we knew what was happening. I hit him with a crowbar. That's how it started. Mesa was a madhouse in hours. Cops shot at anyone who ran. Power died that night. The air smelled like hot metal and blood. My first thought wasn't escape. It was my little sister over in Tempe. She worked at the university. Last text she sent said students were eating each other in the biology wing. I drove my service truck straight through a barricade, sparks flying, engine howling. The streets were chaos. People were dragging the wounded out of cars, then getting dragged back in. I ran over 3 of them just getting to the freeway. I found her at the dorm gates, or what was left of her. There were dozens of them there. Students, naked, sunburnt, screaming, some gnawing at each other. The whole courtyard looked like a slaughterhouse. She was in the middle, eyes wide, blood dripping from her mouth. She recognized me, I think. She ran straight at the truck. I couldn't brake. I hit her square. I never stopped. That was when I stopped being a man and started being whatever the world needed me to be. I holed up that first week in a gas station off Country Club Drive. Found a family already there. Husband, wife, 2 kids. They had water, snacks, even solar panels rigged to a fridge. We thought we could wait it out. Every night we'd sit in the dark, listening for sirens that never came. Then one morning, the husband went out to siphon gas and didn't come back. I heard the growling before I saw him. When I opened the bay door, he was on top of the wife. The kids were hiding under a shelf. I dragged them into the truck, gunned it out of there. The boy didn't make it a mile before the fever hit him. The girl stopped speaking altogether. We drove south, hoping for a quarantine zone near Chandler. All we found were burnt buses. Military insignia half melted, bodies fused to metal. One of them twitched when I walked by, a T-800, I think. Took 4 rifle rounds to drop it. That's when I learned to go for the spine. The girl Lena stayed with me a few more days. She'd stare at the horizon, never blink. One night she just walked out into the desert barefoot. I followed her footprints till they stopped. There was nothing left to follow after that. Just sand and one of her shoes. I kept going. You have to. I found a group of 6 survivors near Apache Junction. Old folks mostly, retirees who thought the gated community walls would save them. They had food, ammo, propane. I helped them rig up a generator from a couple lawnmowers. For a while, we had light. We laughed again. Then one night, the lights drew them, the munchers. They came from the golf course, sprinting, howling. I welded the gates shut, but it didn't matter. They climbed the fences. I pulled 3 people out before the rest were dragged down. That's when I started keeping count. Every survivor that died near me, I kept a mark scratched into my wrench. I'm at 23 now. 2 weeks in, I made it to Phoenix. You wouldn't recognize it. The air itself stinks of burnt plastic and rot. Downtown's just bones and broken glass. I scavenged what I could from an auto shop near Roosevelt Row, fuel filters, spark plugs, a truck battery. I built myself a rolling fortress out of a garbage truck. Reinforced plating, mounted winch, floodlights. Called it the Mule. Still runs. Saved my life more times than I can count. I used it to pull people out of car wrecks. Rescue convoys trapped on the interstate. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes I was too late. One night, I picked up 3 Marines near Sky Harbor. They were trying to escort a CDC scientist, carrying what they called a neutralizing agent. Looked like a silver briefcase. They wouldn't let me see it. We drove west toward Buckeye, where they said a chopper would meet us. We never made it. The hawking types ambushed us under an overpass. One of them dropped from the roof onto the hood. I slammed the brakes, and the Marines unloaded. The scientist panicked, bolted with the case. I watched a ninja drag him into the shadows. The briefcase hit the ground. I didn't go after it. Some things you're not meant to open. I buried the Marines right there, marked the spot with a sign made from a car door. Every grave I dig feels like I'm fixing something the world broke. A week later, I headed back east. Heard rumors of a safe outpost near Superstition Mountains. Found it, sort of. A dozen survivors, campfires, barricades of trucks. They were running on fumes. I traded fuel for shelter. They told me Phoenix was lost because the infection mutated in the heat. Bodies mummified, but still alive, skin cracking like old leather. One night, the wind shifted, carrying that dry, dead smell. Then we heard the scraping, hundreds of them crawling out from the wash. The whole camp panicked. That was the worst night of my life. We fought till our guns melted from heat. I rigged the mule's floodlights and plowed through the swarm, dragging survivors onto the flatbed. 2 made it, then the engine blew. I shoved the others off toward the rocks and stayed behind to hold the line. I've seen horror, Dr. Nightshift, but nothing like what came after. The sand itself moved, buried corpses wriggling free, half-formed things clawing through the dirt. The dead don't sleep in Arizona, they bake and wait. I fought till sunrise, till the sun turned them to ash. Now I'm sitting in the wreck of the Mule, talking to you through an old CB rig wired to a truck battery. The desert's quiet again, but it's the kind of quiet that makes your skin crawl. If any survivors near Mesa hear this, there's a dry wash east of Power Road behind an old church. There's water there, clean. I left supplies, batteries, tools, canned beans. Take what you need, but don't linger after dark. The hawking types prowl when the air cools. I fix what I can. I save who I can. That's all a man's got left now. Maybe someday someone will get the Mule running again. Maybe it'll save another life. Stay strong out there, survivors. Keep your engines tuned, your fuel clean, and your courage cleaner. We're still alive. That's enough reason to fight. Good night, Dr. Nightshift. Hope this helps someone keep going. That was Reeve Strain out of Mesa. Mechanic, fighter, builder. Hell of a man. Some people break under the apocalypse. Some become something better. He turned his craft into salvation, built a machine to hold back the end of the world. There's something poetic about that. What sticks with me is the way he talks about fixing things. Not just engines, but people, graves, hope. We can't undo what's happened, but maybe we can patch it enough to last one more day. If you're out in the desert, take his word. Avoid Phoenix. Too hot, too hostile, too many of the dried ones still walking. Mesa, Chandler, Apache Junction, all dangerous, but still have caches left behind by survivors like Reeve. Check the washes, look for toolboxes or truck shells. That's where the good ones hide supplies. Keep your hearts burning, survivors. The dead hate the light. This is Dr. Nightshift, signing off from Zombieland FM. Keep talking, keep breathing, keep the engines running. Evening, survivors. You're tuned to Zombieland FM, and I'm Dr. Nightshift. Still transmitting, still patching through the static for whoever's left breathing on this side of the apocalypse. Tonight, I've got news from the coastline. Ugly stuff. The Navy's gone dark. Submarines, carriers, the whole Atlantic fleet, silent. Satellite sweeps show nothing but drifting hulls off the eastern seaboard. From what my contacts tell me, the Florida coast is a floating graveyard. Every inlet choked with wrecks. Boca Raton, Fort Lauderdale, even up to Palm Bay, all flooded zones crawling with the infected. Whatever's left of the ports got eaten by their own evac lines. The ocean used to mean safety. Now it's another mouth waiting to swallow you. Let's see who's still out there tonight. You're live on Zombieland FM. Hey, Dr. Nightshift. Good to finally get through. Name's Troy Damar. I'm 26, former U.S. Navy submarine officer, based out of Boca Raton before the world went belly up. I was stationed aboard the USS Wyoming, ballistic missile sub. Guess you could say my job was to make sure the world didn't end. Funny how that turned out, huh? Day one started deep under the Atlantic. We'd been submerged 3 weeks on routine patrol. No contact, no updates, just static. When we surfaced for comms check, the airwaves were full of screaming. Not words, just chaos. Command told us to stay submerged, maintain nuclear deterrent, wait for orders. Those orders never came. After 2 days of silence, the captain ordered a periscope sweep near the Florida coast. That's when we saw it. Miami burning. The whole coastline lit up like a string of flares. I could see ships run aground, people in the water, black shapes chasing them through the surf. We didn't understand yet, thought it was riots, maybe biological warfare. Then we intercepted a scrambled broadcast from NORAD, something about a viral mutation spread through livestock now airborne in urban zones. Mad person disease. They called it munchers in the report. By then, it was everywhere. Our crew started arguing about surfacing. Some wanted to help survivors. The captain said no, it was contamination risk. We had nuclear payloads aboard. One wrong move and we'd become a ghost with teeth. By day 4, we picked up a life raft on sonar. 6 survivors, drifting 40 nautical miles off Key Largo. The captain hesitated, said we couldn't risk infection. I couldn't take it. I led a team to retrieve them anyway. We sealed them in the forward compartment, full quarantine. One was a CDC doctor, half dead from dehydration. She said the virus had mutated faster than anything in history. Said the human brain cooks from the inside, and when it cools again, it wakes up hungry. I wish we'd left them in the water. First night, one of them started convulsing. His skin went gray. Then he bit a crewman's neck open before we could even raise alarms. Containment failed. In a steel coffin 100 meters below the surface, one infection is all it takes. We sealed the compartment, flooded it. Lost 8 men that night. The captain shot himself 2 hours later. That left me in command. I was 26, half-trained, and holding the launch codes for a sub armed with 24 Tridents. I locked down all compartments, cut power to the missile bay. We went dark and silent, drifting. The remaining crew, there were 5 of us, argued about what to do next. One wanted to head for the surface, find their families. Another wanted to launch everything, end it clean. I couldn't do that. I still believed we could fix this. Maybe that's the benevolent streak my mother always said would get me killed. 3 days later, the hull alarm started wailing. We'd surfaced near Boca to recharge batteries. Something was hitting the ship from outside. We thought it was debris. I sent a diver. When he came back up, his eyes were white, face chewed to ribbons. The infected were in the water, swimming. I didn't know they could do that then. The CDC doctor, she said the virus keeps muscle twitch reflexes alive even without oxygen. They just float and grab. We submerged again, deep. I kept the reactor running low and told the men we'd stay hidden until things settled. They didn't. The radio was pure hell. Every transmission we picked up was someone begging for rescue, then static. Jacksonville gone, Key West gone, Orlando gone. The coast became a dead frequency. When our food ran out, we surfaced again. Boca was ash. Condos stripped clean. The air smelled like burned salt and blood. I went ashore with 2 men to scavenge. We found a supermarket half submerged in floodwater. The aisles were silent, shelves gutted. Then something splashed behind us. Out of the darkness came a swarm of them, waterlogged, skin slipping off in sheets, eyes glowing like fish scales. We ran back toward the beach, but they were fast even underwater. One of my men tripped and didn't get up. The other screamed as they dragged him into the surf. I shot until my rifle jammed, then used the stock. I don't even remember getting back to the sub. When I did, there were no lights left inside. No sound. Just the CDC doctor sitting in the control room, staring at the ocean. She'd opened the flood valves in the missile bay, said she couldn't let this weapon fall into the hands of the dead. I don't know how, but she was already bitten. We argued. She wanted to scuttle the ship. I wanted to use it, to survive, not destroy. She reached for the control panel. I shot her through the chest. I buried her at sea. No flag, no ceremony, just the sound of water rushing over steel. After that, it was just me. I spent 2 weeks drifting off the coast, surviving on canned peaches and desalinated water. Sometimes I'd hear knocking on the hull, faint, rhythmic, like someone walking outside. Sometimes I'd see shapes through the viewport. I started sending out distress calls. Nobody ever answered, until tonight. A few days ago, I tried surfacing near Palm Beach. Big mistake. The shoreline's crawling with those things. Hundreds of them, just standing in the shallows, staring out to sea. Waiting. I don't think they breathe anymore. I think they listen. I've been living in the command deck ever since, moving between the compartments, keeping lights low. The oxygen filters are starting to fail. I've got maybe 2 days left of breathable air. But I can't sink the sub. It's too dangerous. Nuclear payload's still intact. If it ever detonates, that's the end of the Gulf Stream. Maybe the whole coast. So I'll do what I swore to do when I joined the Navy. Protect life, even if it means dying with the ship. To any survivors near the water, stay away from the wrecks. The bodies float, but the hunger doesn't drown. Don't trust the quiet tides. The ocean isn't empty anymore. It's feeding. If anyone finds the USS Wyoming beached or grounded, do not approach. Scuttle it. Don't try to salvage. It's a graveyard. You know, Dr. Nightshift, I used to believe the sea was pure. A place where monsters couldn't touch us. But maybe the ocean was always waiting for the world to rot. Maybe it's just reclaiming what's left. If I can't get the air filters working, I'll open the hatches, let the salt water in, and end it on my own terms. At least that way, I won't feed the infection. If you're still out there, survivors, hold the line. Don't give the ocean your dead. Burn them. Don't let them float back to us. This is Lieutenant Troy DeMar, USS Wyoming. Signing off for the last time. God keep you. That one hit deep. A man holding a nuclear sub full of ghosts still trying to do the right thing while the world crumbles. Troy DeMar's story reminds us, sometimes survival isn't about living another day. Sometimes it's about keeping your soul clean while everything else rots. If you're near Boca Raton or Palm Beach, heed his warning. Don't go near the wrecks. The infected in the water are faster than they look, and the Navy hulks offshore are crawling with radiation and death. Stay inland. Best bet right now are the reclaimed zones around Lake Okeechobee. Small communities, solar-powered, armed. They're taking in survivors who can work and defend. Troy made a choice tonight. Not of fear, but of duty. That's rare these days. Keep your fires high and your hearts steady, survivors. This is Dr. Nightshift, signing off from Zombieland FM. Stay alive, stay human. Evening survivors. Dr. Nightshift coming through the static once again on Zombieland FM. Out here, it's quiet tonight, but that kind of quiet's the dangerous kind. Word out of the West Coast is bad, real bad. Power grids across San Bernardino, Riverside, and parts of LA went down for good 2 nights ago. The Inland Empire's a no-go zone, Fontana, Ontario, Colton, all overrun. They say the freeways look like parking lots of bones. I've had 3 different callers report zombie packs nesting in semi-trailers, sleeping under the rigs during the day, hunting by night. And get this, our coastal contacts say there's movement near Long Beach Harbor. Something's driving the infected inland. Storms, fires, or worse. Nobody knows. All I know is if you're hearing me from the California basin, get uphill. The valleys are death traps now. All right, we've got a line open. Let's see who made it through tonight. You're live on Zombieland FM. Hey, Dr. Nightshift. Appreciate what you're doing, man. Feels good just to hear a voice that ain't chewing something. Name's Dominic Harlow. I'm 41, used to work at the Fontana Recycling Center out on Sierra Avenue, just past the old rail yard. Guess you could say I was the guy who sorted other people's garbage for a living. Funny thing is, that's what saved me when the world went to garbage too. Day 1 started like any other. Machines humming, forklifts whining, heat rising off the asphalt like it wanted to burn through your shoes. We'd been getting weird shipments all week. Busted refrigerators, truckloads of old meat packaging, even carcasses from the slaughterhouses near Bloomington. Stuff that shouldn't have been sent to us. They said some contamination issue at the meat plant told us to dispose properly. Around noon, my buddy started complaining his head felt like it was full of bees. Sweating, drooling, I figured heat stroke. By 1 o'clock, he bit another worker right through the arm. We thought he'd lost it. Then he stood back up after we tried to hold him down, like nothing could stop him. You ever see a man you've known 10 years move like a machine? There's no humanity left in the eyes, Dr. Nightshift. Just static. We ran for the yard gates. The sirens started howling. Our plant was linked to city emergency channels. When we looked toward the street, we saw cars ramming into each other, people sprinting across the freeway. One of the loaders crashed through the fence trying to escape. That was the moment I knew. It wasn't just us. It was everywhere. I grabbed what I could, welding torch, crowbar, pair of gloves. We sealed the front office with stacked metal bales and barred the windows using stripped copper wire. There were 6 of us in total. All regulars, guys from the line. Night came, and the whole sky to the west glowed orange. Fires spread from the refineries near Rialto. The wind carried ash, the kind that tastes like pennies. We stayed low, quiet, lights off. Second night, we started hearing the moans. First distant, then closer. The gate gave out before dawn. They came pouring through, standard biters, fast, rabid. We fought back with whatever we had. I swung the crowbar till my hands split. Someone got a forklift running and used it like a battering ram. The noise brought more. When the fuel tanks went up, half the plant turned into a furnace. We lost 2 men there. I dragged the rest into the sorting tower, the high metal skeleton that overlooked the conveyor belts. We pulled up the ladders and prayed the fire drove the rest off. By morning, the city was gone. Freeways jammed, bodies everywhere, smoke thick enough to blot the sun. We radioed for help, nothing but static. On day 3, a convoy rolled past the yard. National Guard trucks, civilians packed in the back. We waved, shouted. They didn't even slow down. I can't blame them. There were hundreds behind them, running, screaming, chasing. That night we rationed water, tried to plan. One guy wanted to head east toward San Bernardino. I said no. The foothills were the only chance, but he went anyway, said he'd rather die moving than wait to starve. We watched him jog down Sierra Avenue until the pack took him. Didn't even scream, just vanished under the wave. Next morning, we started fortifying again. I welded shut the doors below, turned scrap aluminum into barricades. We filled drums with rainwater. It felt almost peaceful, building something. I guess I wanted to believe we could rebuild the world one welded plate at a time. Day 5, the smell started getting through. All that burning flesh, all that rot in the sun. We tried wrapping our faces with rags, but the air tasted like poison. That's when the wind changed and brought them back. They came crawling out of the storm drains. I'll never forget that sight. Dozens of them, faces slick black from oil runoff, climbing like spiders. That's when we saw something new. One of them opened the side door latch. A Hawking, smarter than the rest. It figured out the handle. We fought them on the stairs. One of the guys, Jose, pushed a full barrel of melted aluminum down the steps. The whole staircase lit up, screams, smoke, bones turning to ash. It worked, but it cost us our fuel. After that, I started building weapons out of scrap. You'd be surprised what you can make from old conveyor parts, a pressurized airgun using CO2 tanks, a spiked bat from shredded rebar. We became our own little army. But the noise of the fight must have carried because on day 7, we woke to the sound of helicopters. Military. They circled once, dropped flares, then kept going. Maybe they saw too many moving bodies below. Maybe they didn't care who was alive anymore. We made a plan. The mountains to the north still had radio towers. If we could reach them, maybe we could call someone. So we packed what we had and moved through the train yard. That was the worst decision I ever made. The dead weren't the only ones left alive. Gangs were roaming, armed with whatever they could scavenge. One group caught sight of us, thought we had fuel. They opened fire. One of my friends took a round to the chest before we could duck behind the wrecks. I shouted, begged them to stop. Instead, they threw Molotovs. Everything went up again. We ran back through the freight cars, flames chasing us like hell itself. The infected came for the noise, tearing through the gang just as the fire hit the tankers. The explosion blew me clear through a boxcar wall. When I woke up, it was quiet. No people. No friends. Just the smell of melted steel and charred air. That's how I've been surviving since, one man in the ruins of a recycling yard. I live on canned beans, water from the roof gutters, and the hope that maybe, just maybe, humanity's still worth salvaging. You know, Dr. Nightshift, I keep thinking about what I did for a living. Recycling. Taking trash, breaking it down, giving it a second life. That's all survival is now, isn't it? Taking what's broken and making it mean something again. Yesterday I saved a kid, maybe 12. Found him hiding in a burned-out sedan near the freeway. He couldn't talk, just kept clutching a photograph. I brought him back to the tower, fed him. He sleeps now, clutching my old work gloves like they're gold. That's enough for me. If he makes it, maybe the world ain't done yet. Maybe the fire didn't kill everything worth saving. To the survivors out there, if you're still breathing in Fontana or anywhere near the 10 freeway, the east side's gone. Don't go near the train yard. It's full of corpses and gas leaks. But the hills past Lytle Creek might be safe. There's clean water and maybe a few campers still alive. Keep your hearts kind, even when your hands get bloody. Kindness is harder than killing these days, but it's the only thing that keeps us human. If this helps anyone, if it gives you reason to hold on one more night, then maybe that's worth it. Stay strong, survivors. Dominic Harlow, signing off. A recycling man rebuilding a world out of ashes. That's something. Dominic reminds us that even when everything around you turns to scrap, you can still find a way to forge purpose out of ruin. He made a stand where most people would have run, and somehow found compassion in the middle of carnage. That's the kind of strength we're going to need to rebuild whatever comes next. To those near Fontana, head north if you can. Lytle Creek and the high ridges have cleaner air, smaller packs, less smoke. Avoid the rail corridors and refineries. They're red zones now. Dominic's right, salvage what's left of your humanity. You'll need it more than bullets. This is Dr. Nightshift, keeping the signal alive on Zombieland FM. Stay breathing, stay kind, stay human. Evening, survivors. Dr. Nightshift coming to you from somewhere still holding power, still breathing, still trying to make sense of it all. It's been 1 month since the world we knew bled out. The infection, mad person disease, keeps spreading through the Midwest like a fire through dry grass. Springfield, Jefferson City, and most of the Ozarks are black zones now. No confirmed safe zones left between Kansas City and Little Rock. Highways 44 and 65 are blocked by what's left of the Guard, if there's still Guard. From what I've heard, the infected are changing again. Smarter packs, Hawkins may be worse. Reports of them setting traps, herding survivors into dead ends. It's not rumor anymore, it's strategy. If you're east of the Mississippi, stay there. If you're west, keep your lights off. Night movement draws them. All right, we've got a live signal. Let's hear it. Evening, Dr. Nightshift. Evening. Survivors, my name's Cade Colt, 33. Used to work for an alphabet agency, CIA Domestic Operations Branch. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. The guys who always knew something. Truth is, we did. We just didn't know what. When the outbreak hit, I was stationed in Springfield, Missouri, running a containment task under the CDC's direction. They said it was a prion mutation, mad cow variant transferred through infected cattle. Sounded bad, but not world-ending. The first few days, they told us to maintain calm, collect samples, identify carriers. I followed the orders. I was dutiful. On day one, we quarantined a meatpacking facility just north of town. 20 employees. The first infected we saw were twitching, frothing, biting at anything that moved. They weren't like any rabid cases I'd seen overseas. They died, and then they got back up. We burned that plant to the foundation. Orders straight from Langley. Erase it. Clean the slate. I gave the command. Fire covered the evidence, and I thought it stopped there. By the next day, Springfield was chaos. Broadcasts were jammed, lines dead. Military convoys rolled through the city, only they weren't extracting civilians. They were containing them. Anyone showing symptoms got shot on sight. I tried to coordinate from our field office downtown, but within 6 hours, comms were gone and the city grid failed. My team, 6 operatives, took shelter in the parking garage beneath the federal building. We thought it was safe, but infected had already breached the stairwells. We sealed the doors, listening to the screaming above. There's a sound you don't forget, the echo of boots running, gunfire, then silence. The power went out by nightfall. We set up motion sensors, shortwave radios, UV lamps. One of my men, Greaves, volunteered to scout. He never came back. When we checked the camera feed, we saw him walking toward the elevators, head tilted, body stiff. His own blood dried down his collar. Then the others followed. Whatever this virus was, it moved faster than any disease in our books. By day 3, we were out of water. The only source was the maintenance level below us, half flooded, full of rats and corpses. I went down there alone. The smell hit first, then the movement. I saw her there. Our medic. She'd gone missing the night before. She was crouched in the water, gnawing on something. I didn't raise my gun, I just said her name. She looked up, jaw slack, eyes gone. And then she ran at me like an animal. I pulled the trigger once, then twice. I still see the flash reflected in that water when I close my eyes. That's when I stopped thinking like an agent and started thinking like a survivor. We scavenged weapons, took to the streets. Every block was a war zone, stores looted, cars burning, people running like ghosts. One of the last radio transmissions I caught was from a guard unit out of St. Louis. They said Washington was gone. Not falling. Gone. We headed east on Kearny Street toward the outskirts, hoping to reach the airfield. But the infected were faster than we expected. They didn't move in random waves anymore. They hunted. We saw a pack coordinate to box in a group of civilians at a gas station. They used cars as cover. That was the first time I saw a Hawking. I wanted to help, but my team was already half gone. We ducked into a firehouse and barricaded ourselves inside. The air reeked of smoke and disinfectant. In the locker room, we found a survivor, a firefighter, mid-20s. He was armed with an axe and bleeding from a bite. Said he could feel it crawling up his veins. He begged me to make it quick. I didn't want to, but I'd made hard calls before. This one just felt heavier. We stayed through the night. The infected pounded on the bay doors till dawn. When the hinges gave, I used the roof exit to escape. 2 others followed. One didn't make the ladder. By the end of that week, Springfield wasn't a city anymore. It was a hive. You could hear them at all hours, moaning through the mall corridors, swarming downtown like a tide. I moved north with the last 2 survivors, both civilians, a nurse and a mechanic. The mechanic had a truck. It got us as far as Stratford before it died. We spent that night inside an old farmhouse surrounded by wheat fields. You could see them moving through the grass like ripples. That was the first night I saw a ninja variant. Silent. Fast. It got the nurse before she even screamed. We burned that farmhouse down when we left. After that, I stopped counting days. There was only morning and night, running and hiding. I lost the mechanic in a crash outside Marshfield. I don't know if he turned or died from the wounds. Either way, I kept moving east, low, quiet, using creeks and drainage ditches as cover. Years of training finally meant something. Somewhere around day 17, I picked up a shortwave signal. Military encryption, faint but familiar. Said there was a safe corridor leading toward Fort Leonard Wood. I followed it. The route was lined with traps, tripwire alarms, motion sensors, and burnt-out vehicles. Signs of a retreating unit. I made it to the perimeter. What I found wasn't a fort. It was a slaughterhouse. Hundreds dead, some chained to the fences, all infected. Looked like they'd tried to contain their own men and failed. I scavenged what I could. Rations, field maps, a sidearm. There was a message scrawled on the wall in blood. Containment failed. God help us all. That was when I accepted it. The government didn't fall. It disintegrated from the inside. Orders stopped. Morality fractured. Duty became survival. Now I operate alone. I move between radio towers, rebroadcasting open frequencies, leaving coordinates for any living who might still listen. My old training calls it Echo Protocol. Signal the living, track the strongholds, stay unseen. But I'm tired, Dr. Nightshift. I've seen too much. Friends turning, children being dragged into mobs, cities burning like candles. Still, I keep the mission clear. Preserve truth, protect the living. It's what keeps me sane. If there's anyone listening near Springfield, avoid the urban center. The infection's too concentrated. There's a drainage tunnel off Glenstone Avenue that leads to an abandoned storm shelter. It's dry, defensible, and quiet. Leave a marker if you pass through. I'll know you're real. I don't know how much longer I'll keep broadcasting, but as long as I have a signal, I'll keep reporting. For those of you still breathing, don't let go of discipline. Kate, chaos wants you desperate. Be deliberate. Every bullet, every breath, every decision, it all counts now. Keep your head clear, your weapon cleaner, and your conscience cleanest. That's what separates us from the things outside. Cade Colt signing off. Hope this helps the survivors out there. There's something about hearing a man like that, a professional, trained to control chaos, admit he's tired. Makes you realize we're all running on the same last nerve. Cade saw behind the curtain. Saw the system unravel from the inside. Maybe that's why he's still alive. He knows not to wait for orders that never come. If you're in Missouri, take his words seriously. The Ozarks are unstable. Infection spreading east through the valleys. If you're trying to head north, use back roads and waterways. Avoid main routes. They're traps now, both human and otherwise. And to those of you holding the line, remember what he said. Discipline. You can't control the world anymore, but you can control your choices. That's the one freedom left. This is Dr. Nightshift on Zombieland FM. Keep your frequency open, your light low, and your humanity higher than your fear. Survivors, I'll hear you next time. The nights keep getting quieter out east, survivors. Quieter in that way that doesn't mean peace, just fewer people left to scream. Dr. Nightshift here. Last transmission we picked up came from deep in Missouri, a man trained for control watching the world break protocol. Now the infection's got a new foothold. Reports are coming in from the eastern seaboard. Richmond's gone dark, Norfolk's burning, and Newport News, well, they're saying it's finished. Bridges over the James River are gone. No ferries, no navy, just smoke. They called it mad person disease. Started in cattle, moved through meat, then people. But what we're seeing now isn't livestock sickness, it's evolution. Homer zombies, dumb as ever. Hawking's smarter every night, and a few reports of the silent kind, the ninjas, sweeping through urban zones. If you're in Virginia, stay inland. Keep quiet. Let's take a line. We've got someone from the Tidewater region. You're on the air. Evening. Dr. Nightshift. And to all you survivors out there, I hope someone's still listening. My name's Ronan Dario, 37. Used to be an intelligence analyst for the Department of Defense, stationed near Langley, then later moved to Newport News. My job before all this was to connect dots, track threats, predict patterns, prevent the bad from becoming worse. Funny thing, that's still what I'm doing. Only the dots now are blood trails, and the threats, well, they used to be people. I remember the day it started like it's tattooed behind my eyelids. We got an encrypted report from the CDC saying there was an anomalous viral escalation. Translation: a variant spreading faster than the models predicted. The term munchers hadn't caught on yet, but we knew something was eating at the inside of the system. At first it was small, a few cases near Richmond of some erratic behavior on the freeways. We ran simulations, plotted infection vectors. Every single projection ended in collapse. No one believed me when I said containment was already impossible. I was the one who drafted the internal memo suggesting martial law for the Virginia corridor. They ignored it. 2 days later, Langley went silent. My wife and my son were in Newport News with me when it hit. I didn't even get to say goodbye to them properly. The first breach happened at the shipyard. A freighter came in from Europe. Crew was already infected. Dock workers unloaded, and within hours, the entire port was chaos. You could hear the screams from downtown, the kind of sound that makes you freeze even if you've heard gunfire before. I grabbed what I could: an encrypted radio, my laptop, my sidearm, and the backpack we used for hurricane evacuations. We made it to the car, but traffic was gridlocked. People honking, pushing, fighting. And then I saw the first wave hit the highway. They were fast, moving like one mind. My son was in the back seat. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw him smiling, holding his toy plane, while the world outside was burning. The car next to us exploded into chaos. One infected smashed through the glass, dragged a woman out through the window. My wife started screaming, but I floored the gas. We plowed through the divider and took the off-ramp onto Mercury Boulevard. I don't even know how many people I hit. We made it to a safe house my team had prepped years ago for domestic intel work. It was supposed to be invisible, underground power, sealed doors, satellite uplink. It lasted 2 nights. There were 5 of us there: 2 analysts, a Marine, a civilian hacker, and me. We thought we were safe. The Marine went topside to scout and came back wrong. Didn't even make it through the first sentence before he lunged at the hacker. Blood sprayed across the walls. We didn't have time to think. We pulled the trigger. The rest of us just sat there after, watching the light on the uplink fade out. I told myself we could find my family again, that maybe they'd made it to the naval base. So I left, packed everything into a duffel, and took off toward the shipyard. The roads were choked with bodies by then. Cars burned in long, crooked lines down Jefferson Avenue. I remember stopping by a 7-Eleven to grab bottled water. There was a kid behind the counter, maybe 17. He was still breathing, but bitten bad. I gave him morphine from my kit and stayed until he stopped shaking. That was the first mercy I gave in this new world. I wish it had been the last. I reached the shipyard at dusk. Fires everywhere. You could hear metal groaning as cranes collapsed into the harbor. And then I saw it, a T-800 variant. That's what we started calling them back in the intel reports. Harder, meaner. Doesn't drop until you've emptied everything into it. It was dragging a man by the leg, just ripping through him like he was nothing. I aimed for the head and fired 5 rounds before it went down. I found my wife's car nearby, driver's side door open, blood on the seat, my son's toy plane still wedged in the seatbelt. That's when I realized hope wasn't survival, it was torment. I headed for Fort Eustis after that, hoping for structure, command, something. Instead, I found a field hospital turned slaughter pit, tents shredded, soldiers eaten in their bunks. I scavenged supplies, but I also found something worse: classified files scattered across the ground. Intel confirming what I'd feared: the mutation had adapted to waterborne transmission. Contact through fluid, not just bite. So much for the coast being our shield. I kept moving north, past Yorktown. Ran into a group of civilians on the bridge: 3 women, 2 men, a child. They were trapped between wrecked cars, infected closing in from both ends. I used the sound grenades I'd salvaged from Eustis, drew the horde toward the water. It worked, but only for a minute. One of the women slipped, fell into the shallows, and by the time I pulled her out, her skin was blistering. She didn't even scream. We camped in a ranger station that night. The child, she reminded me of my boy, asked if I thought the world would go back to normal. I told her yes. I lied. The next morning, the men were gone, stolen our food, our radio, and left us behind. I tracked them 2 miles north, found them surrounded in the woods by Hawkins. They didn't make it 10 seconds. I went back to the station, but it was too late. The girl and the women had vanished. I don't know if they ran or if something took them. That was when the weight of mercy started to crush me. Every life I tried to save ended worse than the ones I didn't. Every choice felt like punishment, but I couldn't stop helping. It's who I am. Now I'm holed up in a bunker near the Newport News Williamsburg Airport. The airfield's gone, but the tower still works as a broadcast point. I've been relaying coordinates for evac attempts that never came. I keep hoping someone's listening. Maybe you, survivors. Maybe someone who can use what's left of my data to find a way forward. I've analyzed this infection for 30 straight days. My conclusion is this: the virus doesn't just change the body, it rewires the instinct. They're forming rudimentary hierarchy, packs. Some even follow specific leaders, stronger hosts. That's not evolution, that's organization. If this reaches anyone near the coast, avoid waterways. Don't go for the ports, don't trust the bridges. Inland zones near Williamsburg and I-64 still have shelter potential. Underground malls, metro tunnels. I've marked a few with red arrows on the road if you're passing through. I'm running low on ammo, food, and hope. But I'll keep the signal alive as long as I can. It's what I owe to my wife, to my son, to the ones I couldn't save. Stay human, survivors. If you lose that, the infection's already won. Ronan Dario, out here in the dark. I hope this helps someone. There's something sacred in a voice that still believes in mercy after watching hell unfold. Ronan was trained to read patterns, but what he saw wasn't numbers. It was humanity collapsing line by line. Maybe that's what breaks people like him, the ones who still feel. To the survivors near the Tidewater, his warnings are gospel. Avoid the coast, stay inland, and if you see those red arrows, follow them carefully. You might just find one of his safe points, or at least proof that someone tried. It's strange, isn't it? The ones who once worked in secrets are now the ones telling the truth. This is Dr. Nightshift, reminding you, mercy isn't weakness. It's what keeps you from turning, even if your body survives. Stay quiet, stay kind if you can. And if you've got a story like Ronan's, the line's still open. Zombieland FM will listen. If you're just tuning in, this is Dr. Nightshift, keeping the light alive out here on Zombieland FM. We've been tracking the spread south. Reports out of Missouri have gone cold, and the eastern corridor's drowning under its own smoke. But down in Texas, things are turning mean. The Gulf's crawling with infected, the border checkpoints are gone, and the Rio Grande's running red. The power grids in the valley flickered out 3 days ago. They're saying the infection took Brownsville, McAllen, and Mission within 48 hours. Anyone still breathing out there, you're deep in red zone, but we've got a call on the line coming from the southern edge of the map. Evening, Dr. Nightshift. Name's Jim Halpert. 31, used to be a building engineer down here in Mission, Texas. To anyone still alive out there listening, hold on tight. I'll tell you what happened down here so you understand just how fast everything went from normal to gone. I was at the job site when it started. We were finishing up structural work on the new high school near Conway Avenue. I remember the heat that day, felt like the air itself was melting. My foreman was arguing with the supply guys about late concrete shipments from upstate. No one cared much when the radio in the office started talking about riots in San Antonio. We'd heard that kind of thing before. Pandemic panic, rumor mill, nothing real. By lunch, we saw smoke drifting from the east. Everyone figured it was a refinery fire in Far. But then a pickup came screaming down the highway, back end splattered with something dark. Driver jumped out screaming that they were biting each other. I thought he was drunk. I went to help him, and he grabbed my shirt, eyes wild. He had bite marks all over his arm. He died right there on the dirt, convulsing. 5 minutes later, he stood up again. We ran, all of us, but he was faster than he should have been. We didn't even have time to grab tools. I saw him bite my foreman's neck clean open. That's when I realized this wasn't something you fix. I got into my truck and floored it down Bryan Road. You could already see them coming, packs of people sprinting across fields. Some still in work clothes, some half naked, all screaming. The sound of it, like the air itself, was breaking apart. I made it home to my wife and my brother. We barricaded the place. I rigged the doors using steel bars from leftover job materials. Every window had rebar crisscrossed, every corner reinforced with plywood and screws. We had food, water, generator fuel. I thought we'd made it safe. Then the power grid failed. Not a flicker. Just gone. No hum, no light, nothing. The silence afterward felt wrong. I went outside and could hear the wind through empty streets, dogs barking, sirens fading somewhere toward McAllen. That night, we started hearing scratching on the garage door. I opened the security camera feed on the tablet. We had 4 of them wired from my old job. 3 figures stood there, just pounding slow, steady. I thought they were people looking for help. My wife said not to open it. I hesitated, just for a second. Then the smallest one, a kid, maybe 10, looked right into the lens. Eyes milky, mouth dripping blood. We didn't sleep that night. Morning came and we saw the full scope. The city was burning. Fire to the north, to the west, to the east. I could see the Walmart down Sherry Road engulfed. I counted at least 50 infected running through the parking lot. And mixed in, those Homer ones. Stumbling, bumping into cars, but still deadly if you got close. We stayed inside for 4 days. My brother scavenged nearby houses for supplies. On the 5th day, he didn't come back. I waited until dawn, grabbed a hammer and a crowbar, and went looking. I found his truck half a mile away. Doors open, blood down the driver's side. No sign of him, but I found his cross pendant wedged into the seat. That's when I decided to head for the Rio Grande. The government had talked about setting up a southern evacuation corridor near the Enzalduas Bridge. I loaded the truck with what was left and took off. My wife rode shotgun, holding that pendant in her hand. Halfway down the road, we saw the first convoy. Military trucks, civilians clinging to the sides. One of the trucks hit a barricade, flipped, and the swarm came from both sides. Fast ones. Too many. I gunned the engine, but a woman stumbled in front of the truck. I braked too hard, slid sideways. The engine cut. The swarm hit before we could move. I got out, swung the crowbar, broke skull after skull. The smell like rot mixed with gasoline. My wife screamed behind me. I turned, and one of them had her. I didn't even think. I hit him so hard, the crowbar bent. But she was bitten, right on the collarbone. We drove south anyway. She said she felt fine, that she could make it. I knew better. By the time we hit the border road, her breathing was shallow. She kept saying she didn't want to become one of them. I pulled over by the riverbank, just past the Mission levee. She looked at me and said, "Promise me you won't let me hurt anyone." I held her hand until she stopped breathing. Then I waited. When she came back, I did what I had to do. After that, I didn't speak for 3 days. I stayed near the river, scavenging from abandoned camps. Found a group of 5 survivors, one of them a nurse, another a local cop. We built a shelter from scaffolding and tin sheets, used concrete barriers from an old construction site. I kept us alive with whatever I knew, rigged water filters from PVC, solar lights from car batteries. We made it work for a while, but the infected learned. The Hawkings showed up first. They came at night, smarter than the rest. We had motion sensors tied to the fence, but they cut through without tripping anything. They used silence. I woke up to the nurses' screams. We fought for hours. Lost 3. The cop and I made a run for the bridge, but there was nothing left, just wrecked vehicles and fire. The horde came pouring from the river, soaked and snarling. Waterborne infection was real after all. We climbed onto the old highway sign to get elevation. I could see the whole valley burning under the sunrise. Then the cop slipped. I reached for him, but he was gone. That was the last time I saw another living person. Now I'm holed up in a maintenance tunnel under the old construction site. Air vents, reinforced steel door, generator still humming from backup fuel. I'm an engineer. I know how to make structures last. But even concrete isn't meant to outlast the end of the world. I keep thinking about what my wife said, about not hurting anyone. I think that's what keeps me sane. I've started helping others through the radio, guiding them to safe spots, old shelters I built years ago. If anyone's listening near Mission, there's a drainage shaft under the main highway by the old elementary school. The entrance is hidden behind a cracked concrete slab with a yellow stripe. Inside, you'll find clean water, canned food, and light. Don't stay too long, just pass through. Keep moving north toward Falfurrias. The infection's slower out there. I've seen mercy destroy people in this world, but I've also seen cruelty make monsters out of survivors. So if you can, choose mercy, even when it hurts. Doctor. Nightshift survivors, if any of you make it through mission alive, look up at the rooftops. I left markers, white paint on concrete shaped like arrows. Follow them, and maybe you'll live long enough to see another sunrise. This is Jim Halpert from the south edge of what used to be Texas. I'll keep the generator running as long as it holds. Hope my voice reaches someone. Maybe it'll remind you we're still human, even now. Some stories hit like a hammer straight to the heart. That was Jim Halpert, engineer, survivor, builder of shelter in a world that's falling apart brick by brick. He built safety from steel and willpower, but it couldn't protect him from mercy. What struck me wasn't the loss, it was the grace. The way he still leaves signs for strangers, builds havens for others to outlive him. That's rare now. The concrete kind of goodness. If you're down near the Rio Grande Valley, take his advice. Follow the white arrows. Stay off the bridges. Avoid the river, especially at night. This world doesn't need more heroes. It needs more builders. This is Dr. Nightshift. Keep quiet, keep your walls strong, and if you've got a story like Jim's, you know where to find me. Zombieland FM's still listening. Night again, survivors. Feels like the days don't mean much anymore. Just shifts between light and noise and dark and silence. For those who caught last night's broadcast, Jim from Texas made it out near the border, barely, but the infection's still spreading north. The highways from Arizona through Utah are gone. Provo's off the grid. No new signals, no power signatures. Reports say the mountains are full of refugees and the canyons echo at night. They're saying it's the cold that slows them there. Maybe. Or maybe there's just no one left to chase. Let's see who's still breathing out there. Let's see who's still breathing out tonight. Evening, Dr. Nightshift, and to you survivors still tuned in, my name's Cade Slater. 52 years on this earth. Used to be a tool and die maker at the aerospace plant in Provo, Utah. Guess that means I spent half my life shaping steel, precision cutting molds, turning raw metal into parts that were meant to last forever. Turns out nothing lasts forever. Not even steel, not even us. When this whole thing started, I didn't believe it. Not because I was stubborn, because I'd seen panic before. 9/11, market crashes, wildfires, people always said it was the end. But day one of this, it was different. I remember the first broadcast about it, a meat contamination warning, some mutation from infected cattle in Idaho. They said, don't eat beef, like that would stop it. By the time I heard that, my neighbor was already coughing blood on his driveway. He'd been grilling steaks the night before. 2 days later, Provo went quiet. The plant shut down. Management told us to go home until containment improves. Containment never came. My wife wanted to head north to her sister's place in Heber. I said we'd stay. I had a generator, food stockpiled, tools, a basement I could lock down tighter than a vault. I figured I could fix anything, outlast anything. That's what I did my whole life, fix things. First mistake, thinking you can fix the end of the world. The first week was chaos. Sirens, fires, gunshots. They started calling them munchers. I saw one up close outside the Maverick station. Used to be the clerk, a kid who'd fill my coffee every morning. His face looked half melted, like the skin couldn't hold what was underneath anymore. He charged at a woman pumping gas. I had a wrench in my hand and instinct just took over. One swing. It was the sound that got me. The wet crack, like hitting a side of beef on a table. That was day 5. By day 7, the National Guard rolled through, telling everyone to head for the BYU Stadium. Evacuation zone, they said. Safe. We packed light. My wife brought her Bible. I brought my steel hammer. The stadium was already overflowing. They had floodlights, fences, soldiers barking orders. It felt like safety, for a while. Then the night came. Someone got bitten and didn't say a word. He turned right there in the crowd. Panic spread faster than fire. I grabbed my wife and ran. People were climbing over each other. I saw a woman get pulled down, her kids screaming as the thing swarmed her. Gunfire, shouting, and then silence. Just the chewing. We made it out the side gate, ran east into the residential streets. Houses burning, people yelling for help through boarded windows. I wanted to stop, but my wife said, "Keep moving." We hid in a church on 300 East. I barricaded the doors with pews and waited till morning. That was the last night I saw her alive. We were sleeping in the pastor's office when the glass shattered. They'd climbed in through the stained glass window, hawking types, smart enough to use the scaffolding from the renovation site next door. I got one with a screwdriver, another with a saw blade, but one got her arm. She didn't scream. She just looked at me and said, "Don't let me change." We waited 6 hours. She started shaking, blood going black. I gave her her wedding ring back, kissed her forehead, and did what needed doing with my own hands. After that, I lost time. I think I spent 2 days just sitting by her body, staring at the walls, listening to the wind push ash down the street. Then I buried her out back with a cross made from 2 wrench handles tied with wire. That was day 10. I started walking north. Roads jammed with cars. Every other mile, a pile of burned bodies. Near Springville, I found a group, 2 brothers, a nurse, and an old man with a rifle. We stuck together. I fixed what they couldn't, filters, weapons, small machines. The brothers joked that I was the mechanic for the end of the world. We made camp in an old machine shop outside Spanish Fork. I felt at home there. Tools, metal, order. I built a barricade from scrap, made blades from broken die plates. For a few nights, it felt like purpose again. Then we found out about the T-800s. They came out of the darkness like locomotives. We hit them with everything. Rebar, hammers, bullets, but they didn't drop. I watched the old man unload 6 rounds point blank, and it just kept coming. The nurse tried to run, but the thing grabbed her and slammed her against a lathe. Her head split open like a cracked mold. We ran, all 3 of us, but one brother slipped on oil and never got up. We made it to an overpass. The younger brother froze, said he couldn't do it anymore. He had a hunting knife. He took it to his own throat before I could say a word. I just stood there, blood on my hands that wasn't mine. I kept walking. The mountains looked peaceful from a distance, like maybe they were untouched. Lies. Up there, you could hear them at night, howls echoing through the canyons, not just regular ones either. The ninja types. You don't see them till they're already behind you. I found a cabin near Sundance, tucked behind a ridge. Spent the next week fortifying it, welded shutters from sheet steel, turned the old generator crank by hand. I melted down spare metal to forge spikes, set them around the perimeter like a crown of rust. I think that's what's kept me alive, routine, the craft, making something precise in a world gone chaotic. A few nights ago, I heard voices. Survivors, 3 of them, said they came from Payson, looking for shelter. I let them in, shouldn't have. They weren't sick, at least not yet, but one had a bite under his jacket. Small, old, looked scabbed over. He said he was fine. I knew he wasn't. I argued with myself for hours. I didn't want to become the kind of man who kills just because he's afraid. So I waited. He turned at dawn, quiet, no screams, just a shuffle, then the sound of him snapping the other man's neck. I welded the door shut, locked myself in the tool room. The woman outside begged for help till she didn't. Now I'm alone again. Generators dying, food's half gone, and I can hear them in the woods every night. The wind carries their voices. It's like they mimic sounds now. They've learned to copy the way we call for help. I don't know how long I've got left. I rigged the workshop with tripwires made from piano wire, and I've got one last surprise ready. Acetylene tanks lined up by the door. When they come, I'll light them. I always said steel bends, but a man breaks. I think I've reached that point. If anyone's near Provo Canyon, there's an old tool shop off Highway 189 with the words Slater Machining burned into the sign. Inside, there's food, water, and a map etched into the workbench showing safe paths north toward Salt Lake. Take it. Use it. Keep the craft alive. Dr. Nightshift, survivors, I don't know if this story helps anyone. Maybe it's just proof that building things, fixing things is worth something even now. If you're out there and you're still making, still shaping, you're still human. Stay sharp. Stay consistent. The world breaks easy now. That was Cade Slater, out of Provo, a maker to the end. He built precision and discipline into every breath, even when the world was falling apart. What got me was the patience. He didn't panic, didn't run blind. He built, adjusted, held steady. And in the end, that steadiness might be what kills him or saves whoever finds what he left behind. If you're in central Utah, listen close. Avoid the canyons near Spanish Fork. Ninja sightings confirmed. But if you find that machine shop, follow Cade's map north. Some survive by rage. Some by faith. Men like Cade survive by craft. Keep your hands busy, survivors. A tool in your hand is a weapon, a key, or a miracle, depending on how you use it. This is Dr. Nightshift. Keep your steel clean, keep your heart steady, and if you've got a story, don't hold it back. The night's still listening. All right, survivors, now it's your turn. Do you prefer the gritty radio-style voice or the clean, clear narration? Or should I start dropping both versions so you can pick your favorite? Let me know in the comments, and I'll make it happen. Stay sharp, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next one.